So there's been a lot of conversation in the tech community about the iPhone Air and its value. So on this episode of the Tech Talk, I wanted to go more in detail over the iPhone Air, go over its specs, go over the features it doesn't have, and have a conversation about whether it's good value and whether it's something that will help the industry move forward in the area of smartphones. So let's get into it. So now the next question of the iPhone Air is, will it have impact on the smartphone industry? It's definitely different. There are a lot of features that are packed in there that are unique to it, but there is also a lot of features that are not packed there that have been stripped out in order to make it very thin. And that's where the dichotomy of the conversation is happening right now is it worth having this super ultra thin iPhone device at the expense of certain features and functions that had to be removed in order to make that happen? So I'm really curious what Apple was thinking when they made those decisions because they usually are very straightforward about their tech, but with the presentation of the iPhone Air, they were very selective and very careful how they said certain things. Like, for example, they talked about battery life, and when they compared the battery life to the other iPhones, they specifically accounted for having a battery pack attached to the iPhone Air because of just how small and thin this device is. And so they know that they had to make some sacrifices and changes to be able to make this work. So there's a lot of arguing out there like this is just a ridiculous device that shouldn't exist. The question is, why get an iPhone Air when I can get a 17 that has more features versus what the iPhone Air has and the Pro for that matter. So I think it's important to do a comparison. So let's look at what the iPhone Air has and what the iPhone 17 has. Well, you want to compare the Pro because the 17 already has certain things on the Air actually that we'll discuss, and what had to be removed in order to make it as thin as it is. So let's take a look at the specs and see what it's about. So let's compare the iPhone 17 to the iPhone Air. So first comparison is the screen size. The iPhone 17 is 6.3 inches, while the iPhone Air is 6.5 inches, so a little bit of a larger screen that you get with the Air. Next, they actually both have the equal ProMotion technology, so they go up to 120 hertz all the way down to 1 hertz depending on what's on the screen. So they do have that fluidity of motion when you're using the touchscreen specifically. And then also next you have the A19 chips. Now, the standard iPhone 17 gets the standard A19, while the iPhone Air gets the A19 Pro. So it does have a bit of more of a spec bump to it, a little bit more power to it, more processing, more GPU power in it. So there's going to be some differences right there. So if you're using it for certain tasks that are a bit more graphically or CPU intensive, the iPhone Air will definitely be able to take care of that a little bit faster and better than the iPhone 17. Now, battery life, we already know that the battery is very thin on the iPhone Air just by virtue of it being a thin device. Now, Apple has their own measure of how they measure battery life. So, for example, for the iPhone 17, you have 30 hours of video playback on the battery. And then with the iPhone Air, they claim 27 hours of video playback. So, we'll see how that claim of the 27 hours of battery life pans out. Next, they both have the 18 megapixel center stage front camera, which is a cool feature where you don't have to rotate your phone anymore to get horizontal selfies. You can literally just leave it straight and it'll automatically take it for you when you hold it vertically. Now, the big difference right here that we could start with is the cameras, or the lack of cameras in the case of the Air. So, the iPhone 17 has a 48 megapixel dual vision camera system and a 48 megapixel ultra wide as well. Um, the iPhone Air does not have the ultra wide. It just has the 48 megapixel fusion camera system now. They say that it has optical zoom, which it does, up to 2 times optical zoom, which goes for the same with the iPhone 17 as well. Although with the addition of the wide angle camera, there's some other optical zooms, or I guess image pullback that it gets that allows it to capture a wider view of whatever image it's taking a photo of or recording. And so you have that. Now, they both have Apple Intelligence. That doesn't mean a lot these days right now with Apple, so, but it's good that they both have it. And they both have USB-C. They both are USB-C 2. They both have MagSafe wireless charging. Now, the MagSafe wireless charging is slower on the iPhone Air. It's at 20 watts versus 25 watts, so just something to note there. So a little bit of a different uh, wireless charging speed. Now, they also have similar starting storage capacities, 256, but the iPhone Air does have the option of a 1 terabyte storage, which the iPhone 17 does not offer. Let's see what else we have here. There's a lot of other details which I'll put in the video below, kind of scroll through so you guys can see. Of course, it's a little bit taller, being by virtue of being a bigger screen. They both have splash, water, and dust resistance as well. And finally, they have both 5G network connectivity, but the iPhone 17 does have the millimeter wave 5G, so much faster download speeds, and the iPhone Air does not have that. So it will not have the same level of connectivity and speed as the iPhone 17 and the Pros for that matter. So those are the primary differences I wanted to look over and similarities because those are things that I think should be accounted for when considering getting an iPhone, and in this case, choosing between the iPhone Air and the 17. Now, me personally, I would do the 17 all day. I think you just get way more because also when you think about it, the cost factor also changes the game when it comes to what you get and don't get as well. So in the case of the iPhone 17, the starting price is $799, while the starting price of the iPhone Air is $999. So is $200 worth giving up on the extra camera, giving up on millimeter wave, giving up on having the space for a uh, other features and functions essentially that you're going to be getting with the iPhone 17. Now, for people that value their specs and their tech, they're going to go with the Pro. So that really isn't a debate in of itself. But there are those that love having beautiful products and just certain types of aesthetics with what they own, and the iPhone Air definitely hits that aesthetic. So it's definitely going to appeal to a group of people that want that kind of device. But I think for the average consumer, the iPhone 17, honestly, now is the way to go because now you have almost everything that the pros have at a much better price point. There's still pro features that are exclusive that you can't get on the 17, but your average consumer is not going to notice that. But if the average consumer picks up a iPhone Air, they're going to definitely notice some differences, especially if they come from a prior standard iPhone 16, 15, etc., whatever that may look like. And so the iPhone Air is definitely going to be in its own category, in its own market that's going to appeal to a very specific set of people. So I'm really curious about the battery life in particular because of just how thin it is, how it's going to hold up. They offer a battery pack that you can actually get to expand the battery life on it. And they talk about that during the keynote when it first came out because that's just how important it is to them to make sure that this phone lasts, because thinner phones means less room for battery. So it's going to be interesting to see what they come up with after this to see if people receive it, if people have thoughts about it. I know that it's going to be definitely a talking point for a bit. Now, I want to go over one other piece of comparison. I'm going to compare the iPhone Air to the Samsung Galaxy S25 Edge because that did come out first and it has been making headway for being a thin device as well. And so I like to see what the differences are because I will say I think Samsung did some good things with the S25 Edge that I wish Apple could have done with their iPhone Air. So, for example, they both sport a 120 hertz refresh rate screen, but the S25 Edge is 6.7 inches large, while the screen size of the iPhone Air is 6.5. Now, that doesn't sound like that makes much of a difference, but for some people that does. They like having that bigger screen form factor that is pocketable. So, and then the other one is the cameras. So, the S25 Edge has two cameras. So, you have a 200 megapixel main camera and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera. So, and what's great about that 200 megapixel is the exact same ultra premium main camera that is on the S25 Ultra. So, and then of course Apple just has the one camera, which they say is like two cameras in one. I think that's just mostly marketing speak, but there is a difference. When you have two cameras, there's just more functionality that those two cameras can work together that you just can't do with a single camera. That technology isn't there yet. And so now, those are just 2 points that I wanted to point out. There's other differences, of course, just by virtue of being Android versus iOS. But I think it's important to note those two things in particular because that makes a difference for a lot of people. The screen size and the camera, and the storage for that matter, are important for a lot of people. So now I will say I will give credit to Apple. They have a little bit of a win when it comes to the price. It starts at $1099 for the S25 Edge versus $999. So a little bit of a difference there. But you can see that the competitors are competing in this area as well. So I think we'll see more of a trend of thinner phones. And I just think that because Apple did it, it's sparking a conversation about the viability of thin phones. And if that's the future, and if that's something that can become more mainstream over time. I think Apple, because they haven't really been focusing on innovation, is trying to spin this as an innovative feature. But I think it's more of a factor of like, does this look beautiful? Do I want this? Do I want this beautiful device that's super thin and super sleek as my part of my tech product? And so I think you're going to see more of that as opposed to it becoming a mainstream and becoming something where the iPhone Air transforms the smartphone industry. I don't think we're going to see that. I think that that's not going to happen with this type of iPhones. We need something different. We need something refreshing and new. I do think though that the iPhone Air is the precursor to them testing out folding technology, and I think that we're going to soon see an iPhone that folds because they were able to first work the technology with the iPhone Air. So in a sense, I kind of see it as almost like a prototype of what's to come, and I really hope that in the next year or so we will see an iPhone Fold. But that's another conversation for another time. Today I really wanted to go over the iPhone Air and just chat with you guys about it. And I hope that you found this conversation interesting. I definitely would love to hear your thoughts on this. So leave a comment below. Have any questions and want me to look into some things regarding this? I'd love to check it out. So thanks for coming to my tech talk today. Don't forget to like this video and please subscribe to my channel and also hit that notification bell so you can be notified when new video content comes in. I enjoy talking about this stuff, so I look forward to sharing my next tech topic with you. But until then, thank you guys for watching and listening today. You guys take care. Thanks.